Now, this may seem bad, but Carr was quick to reassure everyone, posting, "While this may be an unprecedented decision, it is important for broadcasters to push back on Disney programming that they determine falls short of community values." Well, you know what my community values are, Buster? Freedom of speech.
My good friend Jimmy Kimmel, I feel bad about this because we all see where this is going, correct? It's managed media, and it's no good. It's silly. It's ridiculous, and you can't go around firing somebody because you're fearful or trying to suck up to an authoritarian criminal administration in the Oval Office.
To respond to this, but I'm not smart enough or powerful enough to be the one to do it. But I imagine there's plenty of conversations going on to do something, because you just can't stand by and let stuff like that go on.
Stuff like?
Well, Jimmy getting his show pulled for, freedom of speech.
Drown out the sound of millions of people cheering as you leave. You still have Pet Finder since you're on the outs with Mike Pence. You have Cameo, which will soon be your primary source of income. You can still play Among Us, a game where everyone accuses each other of being against them. You'd love it.
What happens when a comedian's late-night jokes stop being funny to the most powerful man in the world? For Jimmy Kimmel, this wasn't a hypothetical question. It became a terrifying reality. On the surface, his public feud with Donald Trump looked like another spectacle for the 24-hour news cycle. We saw the angry tweets, the televised takedowns, and the personal insults. It was a classic Hollywood versus Washington clash that played out like entertainment. A war of words that seemed noisy but ultimately harmless. But that was just the performance for the cameras. Behind the curtain, a much more dangerous game was unfolding. The real battle wasn't fought on Twitter, but in whispered phone calls and tense, high-stakes meetings inside Disney's corporate suites. While Kimmel was on stage speaking his mind, his bosses were facing a chilling dilemma. Their entire media empire, including a historic $71 billion merger, could be put at risk, all because one of their hosts refused to stay silent. The pressure was immense, coming from the highest office in the country. This wasn't just about ratings or a bruised ego. It was a raw battle of power, influence, and fear. The public saw a comedian fighting a president. What they didn't see were the unspoken threats, the corporate anxiety, and the secret campaign designed to bring one of television's most influential voices to heel. The story everyone thought they knew was only half the truth. Now, we reveal the other half. The fuse was lit not by a political punchline, but by a father's profound fear. In May 2017, Jimmy Kimmel walked onto his stage, abandoning his usual smirk for the raw, unfiltered emotion of a man shaken to his core. He told the world about his newborn son, Billy, and the terrifying discovery of a congenital heart defect. His voice cracked as he described the open-heart surgery his son endured just hours after being born, a harrowing story that silenced the studio audience. He wasn't performing a monologue, he was sharing a deeply personal trauma. But just as the story seemed to be about gratitude, it took a sharp, defiant turn. Kimmel skillfully pivoted from his family's ordeal to the heated political battlefield over the Affordable Care Act, then under threat of repeal by the Trump administration. He drew a direct line from his son's hospital bed to the millions of American families who relied on the law's protections for pre-existing conditions, just like Billy's. In that instant, Kimmel ceased to be just an entertainer. He became a powerful advocate. His plea was not a rehearsed political bit, but an authentic cry for empathy. This personal stand transformed his platform and set him on a direct collision course with the White House, igniting a firestorm that would soon rage out of control. The White House response wasn't a debate, it was a declaration of war. As Kimmel's influence grew, Donald Trump personally unleashed a furious barrage of public attacks, aiming to shatter the comedian's credibility. The president didn't engage with the substance of the healthcare argument. He went for the man. Through a storm of early morning tweets and rally speeches, Trump painted a portrait of Kimmel as a failing, untalented host with dismal ratings. He was framed as a quintessential Hollywood elite, a man in a bubble, completely disconnected from the lives of the people he claimed to champion. This was far more than a simple insult. It was a meticulously crafted strategy. The goal was to delegitimize Kimmel in the eyes of the public, to turn his own audience against him by branding him as a partisan mouthpiece, not a concerned father. It was a tactic perfected against political rivals, now weaponized against a comedian. The message sent from the Oval Office was brutally clear and intended for all of Hollywood. If you use your platform to become a significant political obstacle, you won't just be criticized, you will be targeted, discredited, and publicly dismantled. This was a warning shot, and the real escalation was only just beginning. The public attacks were just a smokescreen for a much more sinister threat. The conflict escalated from a war of words into a direct challenge to ABC's very existence when Trump began to publicly question the network's broadcast license. This wasn't just another tweet, it was the pulling of a political kill switch. For those unaware, a broadcast license is the lifeblood of any television network. It is granted by the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, a powerful government body whose leaders are appointed directly by the sitting president. Suddenly, the feud had moved into the shadowy realm of regulatory power. The implication was clear and sent a wave of panic through Disney's boardrooms. The Trump administration could theoretically use the FCC to tie up ABC's license in endless legal battles, costing them millions, or even threaten to revoke it entirely. It was a move designed to turn the network against its own star. This was no longer about Jimmy Kimmel's jokes. It was a shot at his employer's foundation. The message to the highest levels of Disney was delivered with chilling precision. Muzzle your host, or the entire network could face the consequences. The war had officially moved from the stage to the executive suite. This political threat landed squarely in the lap of Disney, a global behemoth where the stakes were measured not in ratings, but in billions of dollars. The timing for this presidential pressure could not have been worse, as Disney was navigating the most delicate and monumental deal in its modern history. On the table was a staggering $71 billion acquisition of 21st Century Fox. This historic merger needed the green light from the Trump administration's Department of Justice to become a reality. Any political interference or regulatory hurdles could jeopardize the deal, potentially costing the company its entire future. Suddenly, Jimmy Kimmel's nightly monologues were transformed from a simple HR issue into a massive multi-billion-dollar liability that threatened to derail everything. The conflict had moved far beyond the realm of free speech and television programming. It had become a high-stakes negotiation where a comedian's career was a bargaining chip. The question being debated in hushed tones inside Disney's glass towers was brutal. Was the principle of one host's freedom of expression worth risking a generation-defining deal? A comedian's right to speak was now being weighed on a scale against pure, uncut financial power. And behind closed doors, a decision had to be made. As the pressure mounted, the whispers in Hollywood grew louder. Industry insiders began to murmur that quiet, tense conversations were happening behind the scenes between Kimmel and the highest echelons of Disney. Reports claimed that executives, fearing for their billion-dollar merger, urged him to soften his tone. While the exact details of these meetings remained shrouded in corporate secrecy, Kimmel himself later validated the core of these rumors in public interviews. He openly admitted that he was told in no uncertain terms that his monologues were making some of the most powerful people in the country very uncomfortable. Faced with the choice between his job and his conscience, Kimmel made a defiant stand. He reportedly told the executives that he simply did not care if they fired him. For him, this fight was not about politics or ratings. It was about his son's future and the millions of families who were hanging in the balance. This was a stunning act of rebellion against both corporate and political pressure. By refusing to be muzzled, he drew a clear line in the sand, daring his bosses to choose between protecting their financial interests or defending his right to speak. The secret mandate had failed, and Kimmel's defiance had raised the stakes even higher. This high-stakes battle wasn't just about one man. Kimmel was simply the main front in a much wider war. The Trump administration was waging a systematic campaign against the entire institution of late-night television, viewing it as a powerful source of opposition that needed to be neutralized. The evidence of this broader strategy was clear in the president's own words. He relentlessly attacked Stephen Colbert, branding his show as a failing, no-talent production. Seth Meyers was similarly targeted, with both hosts often lumped together with Kimmel as total losers pushing a fake news agenda. This wasn't random anger, it was a calculated effort to poison the well. By repeatedly attacking the credibility of these popular hosts, the goal was to convince millions of viewers that their satire wasn't insightful commentary, but biased propaganda from an out-of-touch coastal elite trying to undermine the presidency. The intense pressure on Kimmel and Disney was a crucial test case for this strategy. If a host as famous as Kimmel could be silenced through corporate intimidation, it would send a powerful and chilling message to every other network and entertainer. The warning was simple: stay out of politics, or you will be the next target. Ultimately, Disney stood by Jimmy Kimmel, and their massive merger was approved. On the surface, it appeared to be a clear victory for free speech, a moment where a comedian stared down a president and a media giant backed its star. But the public outcome masked the deeper, more permanent scars left behind. The entire ordeal exposed a terrifying vulnerability at the heart of corporate media. It revealed just how quickly political pressure can be applied when billions of dollars are on the line, forcing executives to weigh principles against profits. A dangerous precedent had been set for all major news and entertainment organizations. This created a lingering fear in the industry, a phenomenon known as a chilling effect. Network executives are now hyper-aware that a single controversial monologue or a politically charged segment could ignite a firestorm with real financial consequences, making them far more cautious about crossing powerful political figures in the future. While Kimmel's personal defiance was a win, the underlying threat never disappeared. The episode served as a grim reminder that the voices we trust for entertainment and satire are controlled by corporations that must answer to Wall Street and Washington. The balance of power had been tested, and the cracks were beginning to show. So, in this epic clash between a comedian, a corporation, and a president, who truly had the last laugh? Jimmy Kimmel kept his platform, his voice amplified by the very controversy that was meant to silence him. He proved that one person's conviction could indeed stand firm against immense political and corporate pressure. But the story reveals a far more fragile and unsettling truth about power in the modern age. It's a stark reminder that the battles for free speech are not just fought in the public square, but in private boardrooms where billion-dollar deals hang in the balance. The line between political commentary and corporate liability has become dangerously thin. The war between Kimmel and Trump was more than a headline-grabbing feud. It was a glimpse into the invisible machinery that influences what we see and hear. It showed how easily the levers of government and finance can be used to apply pressure, creating a landscape where speaking out carries an ever-increasing price. This leaves us with a critical and unresolved question for our time. In a world where media giants are more powerful yet more vulnerable than ever, and where political forces are willing to push the boundaries to quiet their critics, how safe is the simple, fundamental act of telling a joke?